Detective Miller's gaze, tired from countless hours, snagged on an anomaly. Not the smeared fingerprint, long dismissed, nor the inconsistent weather report. It was the background noise on an old 911 call. A faint, almost imperceptible chime, like a wind chime, barely audible beneath static and frantic breathing. A detail catalogued, then forgotten for decades, deemed irrelevant. But now, paired with new, digitally enhanced aerial photos of the last known location, something clicked. Richard Thorne, deacon at the local church. Sarah's former high school teacher. A man who organized countless search parties, offered comfort to her grieving parents, and even delivered her eulogy, his voice thick with feigned sorrow. A man everyone trusted implicitly. A man nobody suspected. Not for a second. Miller pulled Thorne's files. And that's when investigators noticed something strange. Impeccable. He'd been interviewed early, provided an airtight alibi, backed by his devoted wife, Alina. They were at a charity dinner across town, he'd claimed. But the chime it placed Thorne, or his property, squarely in the zone, at the exact time Sarah vanished. An impossible coincidence. The old aerial photo, taken just days after Sarah's disappearance, showed something else. A freshly disturbed patch of earth behind Thorne's isolated woodshed. Too deliberate. The digging, agonizingly slow, each shovelful of dirt a betrayal. The moment excavators hit something solid, a sickening thud, a collective gasp caught in the cold morning air. Years later, a phone call would reveal. It was Sarah. Her fragile remains, her beloved silver locket still clutched in her hand, a silent testament to her final moments. The shock rippled through the community like a seismic wave. Richard Thorne, the grieving friend, the moral compass, the man who spoke so eloquently of loss, was the monster they'd been searching for. His wife, Alina, confronted with the irrefutable evidence, finally broke. Her initial alibi, a desperate act of protection, crumbled under the crushing weight of her conscience. Richard, it turned out, hadn't been at the charity dinner. He'd left early, feigning illness, returning to a secluded spot where he knew Sarah often walked her dog. The motive? Not grand, not calculated. A moment of impulsive rage, a terrifying confrontation over a perceived slight, ending in an unthinkable act hidden for decades. A secret kept in plain sight, protected by trust, by silence, by the very fabric of their small town. Nobody knew. Not until now. Years later, a phone call would reveal. Sarah Jenkins, barely 24, lived for mornings like these. A Tuesday in early May, sunlight splintering through the budding leaves of Elmwood Park. She breathed deep, the scent of damp earth and fresh-cut grass filling her lungs. Her golden retriever, Buster, tugged eagerly at his leash, his tail a blur. Sarah chuckled, the sound light and free, echoing slightly on the empty path. She was on her way to the library, her favorite shift, but first, a long run. A routine, a comfort. A life brimming with quiet joys. She loved the feel of worn pages in her hands, the hushed reverence of the stacks. She had dreams, simple ones. A small apartment overlooking the creek, a trip to Ireland, maybe a family someday. She was the kind of person who remembered your birthday, who left anonymous notes of encouragement, who made sure Buster got extra treats just because. A warm, steady light in the small community of Havenwood. That morning she'd kissed her mother on the cheek, promising to be home for lunch. "Don't worry if I'm a little late," she'd called over her shoulder, already halfway out the door, Buster panting at her heels. It was a promise that would haunt her mother for decades. But what they didn't know was, her mother, Martha, called her cell called the library. A knot tightened in her stomach. Buster, usually glued to Sarah's side, was found whimpering near the park's main gate, his bright red leash still attached, dragging in the mud. He was alone. Sarah was gone. The quiet hum of Havenwood shattered. Police cruisers, their blue and red lights painting the familiar streets in an alien glow, descended on Elmwood Park. The air grew thick with a different kind of dread, replacing the scent of spring with the metallic tang of fear. "Sarah," they cried, their voices hoarse, carried on the cool evening breeze. But what they didn't know was. But only the wind answered. The vastness of the park, once Sarah's sanctuary, now seemed to swallow every sound, every hope. Every rustle of leaves was a false lead, every distant cry a renewed agony for Martha, who paced the edges of the search grid, clutching a worn photograph of her daughter. Detectives swarmed the Jenkins' modest home, their questions sharp, clinical. Had Sarah argued with anyone? Was she seeing someone new? An ex-boyfriend, Mark, was questioned, his alibi ironclad, his grief palpable. A drifter seen loitering near the park, a week prior, vanished as quickly as he'd appeared. Every theory, every whispered suspicion, was meticulously pursued, only to unravel into nothing. Leads evaporated like morning mist under the relentless sun. The dense brush of the park yielded no footprints, no struggle, no discarded item. No one saw anything unusual. No one heard a scream. A single, worn button, dark plastic, was found embedded in the mud near a rarely used side trail. The next discovery changed everything. Just old debris from the woods, the officer decided, too small, too common to be significant. Another dead end. The initial storm of activity slowly, agonizingly, gave way to a chilling silence. The phone calls from tips lines dwindled. The flashing lights retreated. The relentless questions from investigators became fewer, softer, tinged with resignation. Havenwood held its breath, waiting for an answer that never came. The initial nightmare had morphed into a cold, hard reality. The frantic search had yielded only one terrifying truth. Sarah Jenkins had simply vanished, leaving behind only the ghost of her laughter and a trail that led absolutely nowhere.